Hey, you guys remember when your company had a DEI town hall, the sustainability pledge, the people first values deck? And then 2024 happened and suddenly it's quiet retreats and belonging.
Well, it's actually very interesting, Lou, because somehow the executive travel budget survived among all this while the employee resource budget didn't.
Yeah, the louder leaders talk about culture, right? But it feels the more performative that it feels, especially when the actions are not really aligning with the message. That's a huge problem today.
Yeah, and basically when more like your CEO or your exec team posts about values, the less real they probably are. Yeah, and today we are talking to someone who spent decades building and transforming cultures at companies at scale, billions in portfolios, thousands of people across countries and industries. Welcome, Amber Selking.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So excited. You've been in leadership and culture for years, right? Your career is beautiful. What drew you to focus on culture and leadership? When did you realize that it was, as important as the work itself?
Yeah, I was so blessed to be raised in a home. My mom was an extension agent, which is for 4-H. It's a youth development organization, and so, her life mission is to equip young adults to be contributing members of society, and her lens was through 4-H. And so, I raised livestock growing up. I raised lambs and pigs, and was in 4-H and did public speaking and all of these things, and then my dad kind of lived the American dream, where he started off working at McDonald's at 14, and his goal was to own his own franchise someday. And so he wound up becoming an owner operator, and eventually him and my mom built a 6 franchise business. And so I got to be raised by a woman who, did youth development for 20 years of her career, and then she transitioned her career to help my dad build this franchise organization. And I went back home several years ago, and I went into one of the old offices, and I found the original Latner Enterprises vision statement, mission statement, core values. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot all of this was a thing. And so, I was raised in a family that prioritize building high performing teams and high performing individuals. And so, I knew at a very young age how important, whether you were raising livestock, whether you were selling hamburgers, having a really strong leadership is what facilitated the expedited growth of that. But you couldn't just have leadership, right? You had to have people inside of that team who felt it, who believed it, who lived it every single day. And so while I don't know if I had the words or the language to put it all together back then. I think foundationally, to the core essence of my being, I got to see it, I got to experience it, I got to be held accountable to it. And so, leadership is really, really important to me. And then the mindset of the people that you're leading is the next component of that. I'm a believer in all of it, and an even firmer believer that it has to get to the people in the front lines of your team, your organization, for one, it to mean anything and to matter, and two, for your organization to be high performing. And, in our case now, it's manufacturing, right? So whether it's livestock or hamburgers or manufacturing, it's all the same. It's leadership, and it's the mindset of the people inside of that experience your leadership and therefore your culture every single day.
Yeah, man, that's very, foraging is like a big vision of mine. If you just look at many tech people, imagine a world where there is no computers or internet. I feel like we are useless.
Yeah.
Right? So that's like a skill that I am personally trying to also reach to. But it's just good that it's been part of your journey, just growing up.
Yeah.
So,
How lucky you are.
100%.
We're fans of culture too, and I think that's why were here too. Like when you're evaluating a company's culture, whether joining a team or building a new one, what are you actually looking for beyond the values poster?
Yeah, for me, building a high performing team or organization has three kind of macro components, if you will. It's got to be top down, it's got to be bottom up, and then it has to be contextually relevant. And so, top down is really the vision, the mission, the values. It is the poster on the wall. Like at the end of the day, that's actually a part of establishing really good culture. Communicating it consistently is part of a really good culture. But then the bottom up part is we have to get it off the walls, and like we say here at Lippert, into the rhythms of business, right? It's not enough to say positive attitude is a core value of us. How are we, in whatever our roles are, going to live that core value and hold it accountable in the person that I'm working alongside of? And so again, top down, you have to have it, right? You need the vision, the mission, the values. You need accountability structures. You need processes. You need the environment to communicate what those are. But then again, it has to be bottom up, where people are able to experience it, own it, wrestle with it on a day-to-day basis. And then it has to be contextually relevant. I mean, back to what I just shared, right? It was contextually relevant for what my little livestock business looked like, to what McDonald's looked like, to what manufacturing looked like. But even within Lippert and manufacturing, it's contextualized to our sewing facilities are different than our weld facilities. And how do we make sure that the people inside of a sewing factory or a weld facility or on our supply chain or finance team can contextualize those values and own them in unique ways so that they can really be a part of that culture? And that to me is what helps really bring culture to life in a meaningful way inside of an organization.
Man, that's great. Like, man, but you know what? Like something wild. Let me throw this at you, Amber. Like 42% of employees believe their executive leaders don't actually contribute to a positive company culture. I mean, there seems to be a disconnect there. So in your experience, like what's the difference between a company culture that actually survives transformation versus one that crumbles when things actually get hard?
I mean, I think it goes back to that same thing, right? Like, is there really strong leadership at the top? So Lou, you asked, like, what do I look for when I go into a company? Like, is there strong leadership at the top that really believes in who we say we are, right? And if they don't, it's not going to be driven in good times, and therefore it's certainly not going to be driven in bad times or in seasons of change, right? There has to be this sense of extreme belief and ownership at the very top of an organization to survive those transformational changes. Now, changes happen every day inside of an organization. So let's just say there's change happening within your IT team, which we have lots of change happening inside of our IT team here. And so the leader of that department, aka Brian in our case, has to firmly believe in who we are and what we're doing and why we're doing it to drive some sense of stability even amid change to the rest of the people inside of that team. But then guess what? Brian's got a lot of direct reports of other, departments within inside our IT structure, and those leaders have to believe it. Or what we see is that change, even though it might be going well inside of the broader IT structure, by department, you can see where it's not going well, right? And that comes down to the leader in that part really owning it, buying it, believing it, and then communicating consistently within that change. And then again, like I said, the bottom up parts of it, how are the people inside of those teams? Do they trust their leader? Do they believe in the organization broadly enough to weather the storm? And that again goes back to why, I know we joked earlier when we started this of like organizations that talk about values often aren't living them.
There are many of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And it happens a lot. Like I think you do see that a lot, but I also believe that you have to talk about it a lot so that people can buy in and believe. And when you do, and that's their lived experience, that's where the impact of culture can start to amplify at an exponential rate. Is it's talked about and it's lived. Now all of a sudden, greatness can really happen.
but it's lived. You said something critical. The proof is in the pudding, right? Like, you can talk about talk, but if you're not living the talk, if you're not doing what you're preaching, people just will discard it. You lose all trust. You lose even more trust.
Yeah, it's even worse, right? Like we just came off of our engagement survey cycle, and one of the things we say is like the worst thing we could do is survey our people and do nothing about it, right?
Yes.
And then on top of that, we say, a lot of times what we do is like we'll survey people and we'll do a lot of work about it, but we won't communicate it. And there's in people's minds, there's this thing called teach for transfer, and basically what that tells us is that the brain doesn't naturally transfer information that they learn in one situation to another situation. So they could give feedback on the engagement survey on, let's say, the cleanliness of our bathrooms, for a very simple example. And we might take that feedback and hire a cleaning person and have that person, and the bathrooms might get cleaner. But if we don't tell our team, hey, we heard you and we took this action, the brain doesn't naturally see the correlation back to their feedback. And so that's where it becomes this cycle, Lou, of like, you got to talk about it and you got to be about it.
You got to do it. Yeah, you got to back it up.
And if you lose one or the other, there's a cognitive dissonance or a gap in your people's minds. And so we don't see the type of ROI that culture can really contribute to an organization if we don't have both of those in a very consistent rhythm.
I love your energy. You're so high energy, and your job, it's very demanding. I can only imagine, like, how do you manage on a family lens here to not bring work stress home? Or is that even possible?
Well, first of all, I have a really amazing husband who supports all of my craziness. He loves,
I love it.
He loves when I have a busy day at work, because then I come home like, breathe a little bit. I really struggled with that for a long time because I was raised in a family business. And so it was like, we're always working. Like I grew up seeing my mom would like answer the phone to schedule interviews the next day, or they're doing the schedule while we're watching a movie together. And so I just, thought you're always working. And we do. My husband, he's part of a family business, so we work all the time. But we have a 2.5-year-old now, and she like demands your attention. And I want her to know she's
the boss. She's the boss.
Very much. Like she'll be like, look at me. She'll pound her little chest. Like if she's talking and you're not giving eye contact, she will call you out. I mean,
future leader right there.
Jason, our CEO, sits right here. That's why I'm pointing this way. He always says, she's already hired. Get this girl in office. Get this girl in office and a title. But so she really demands that. And I think to me, that's why individual core values for a person is really important. Like, because I say that my family is a priority to me. And if it is, then it needs to drive my actions. Then when I'm home, I need to be home. And so then, okay, that's a value. I want to take that action. Then what are some practical things that I can attach to that action? One of the things that I've done is like, when I hit the radius of my home, my phone goes into like personal mode. And so it takes off any notifications that come to my phone. Even when I look at it, like my text messages, my emails, it strips the little annoying red number off the top that tells you how many are there.
And you're like, I gotta read that. Yeah.
I have to read that because like I love efficiency and I like to be contactable. But when I look down and there's no red circles, it doesn't create that anxious need to respond mechanism. So that's kind of a practical way that I've tried to establish some healthy, I don't say boundaries because
it is boundaries, right? You gotta like share yourself. Now it's time for your other.
I guess it's less about boundaries to me and more about priorities. That feels like a better word to me. Because I also think it's annoying when people are like, I have to set boundaries and I can't do anything at a certain time. Like,
I love the voice. I love the voice.
I'm sorry.
Already imitating an annoying person. I love it.
Oh man. Just shifting to kind of like employee engagement, Amber. It's been falling. I mean, across the board. And this is actually costing the global economy hundreds of billions of dollars in like lost productivity, right? When you see numbers like that, what do you think is actually broken?
That's a really good question. I think connection, like human connection to your people, connection to your problems, connection to their lives, and then connection of them back to their work and their purpose and the organization that they're a part of. And that's where I think some companies try to solve this by putting posters on the wall and talking about it without taking like tangible, actionable steps that reconnect human to human, human to work, human to purpose. And that's what I love about being at Lippert. And that's what I love about our senior leaders here, like Jason, Ryan, and Jamie. More than anything that I respect and appreciate about them is they're like, okay, well, what are we going to do about that? How do we do something about that to the front lines of our people? And don't over engineer it. Just do it, right? Like, real action is more important than a 42-step process that we can track, which is all important too and ish, but like at the end of the day, like it's not, right? It's about connecting with the heads, the hearts, and the hands of our people. And that's how we define engagement here. Is our people's heads connected? Do they understand the purpose of who they are and what they're doing? Are their hearts ignited from a passion standpoint? And are their hands driving performance? Like, people want to do good and be good at their job. Like, if we can do that, then guess what? You drive engagement.
And it's palpable here. I feel it. You feel it. In an interview, it's easy when you are in a company. It's like, wow, I can feel this in my bones. It's not just talk to talk. But like when people are trying to evaluate a company during an interview, what should they really be looking for? Or should they do a lot of pre-work before even get to the interview?
Both and, right? I mean, I think you need to do as much research as you can on a company, learn about what they have on their website, watch videos if you can find them, watch their stock performance if they're publicly traded, look at their whatever financials you can find on them. And then in the interview process, everybody you talk to, can you see that similar thread, right? Or is there a disconnect between everything you learned before stepping in and what you're experiencing? And sometimes that can be for the better. Like, I'm not even saying that can be a bad thing, right? A company might have an outdated website but you get in it and it's like, they've spent more time doing actual cultural work than talking about it. And so, wow, what a breath of fresh air. So don't be scared by that. But then in your conversations at every layer, from the senior most person you talk to the junior most or frontline team member, is there a similar thread that exists? That's something I always look for. And then I would ask questions. I coach interviewers to ask questions. They're called behavior-based interview questions, right? The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So tell me about a time when you handled conflict or disagreed with your leader. Like, how did you handle that? The same you can ask about organizations. Hey, tell me about an experience where the organization went through organizational change and how they navigated that. Tell me about how you handle performance reviews here, or career growth opportunities here. Can you share some stories of a person that you've mentored and their career trajectory inside of this organization? Like, whatever is important to you as a potential employee, like, ask those questions about how they've been done before inside of that organization, and it'll give you a glimpse of, does that happen here or not? I quote Edgar all the time. He's one of our leadership development directors because he's so full of just like wisdom. And he said, culture is just like the way that we do things here. And so you want to know about the way that they do things inside of that organization, but specifically how they do things that matter to you. Learning is really important to you. How do they do that there? And if it's not there, then maybe that's not a good place for you. When I'm evaluating talent to bring inside of our organization, I always think about the 3 C's: character, competence, and cultural fit. Similarly, when you're evaluating a potential employer, what's the character of that place? What's the core competencies of that place? And what's the culture of that place? And are those aligned with and for you? And if so, maybe that's a great fit. And if not, it doesn't mean they're bad. It just means they're not right for you. So go find one that is.
Yeah, I saw Lippert had a chief culture officer. I'm like, okay, they must take this seriously. So that also is an inclination while they're putting their money where their mouth is. That's very important.
When Lou and I started talking about the Two Coffees and podcast, we were like so anti frameworks and bullet points and all of that. But as you were talking about the character competence and cultural fit, I was like, yeah, that's a triple C that I can get along with. And just having that right balance between bullet points, frameworks, and like what people can actually digest and make it part of their authentic self is very, very important.
I love frameworks. I love bullet points. My brain thinks in that from a macro perspective. And I think that every person makes decisions based on logic and emotion. And some people lean more towards logic, some people lean more towards emotion. But you really have to hit both of those in order to help change happen well, inside of a person or inside of an organization, for learning to happen well, right? And so, I think both of those are critically important. And then depending on the person or the organization, depends on how much of each is really helpful to help move them forward, right? Because the goal is moving forward. It's not to do it your way or do it. There's not a right way, right? There's who's the organization and what balance of that makes sense. And I always say you got to play the game to win the game. And I love winning. If I'll get the game, and then we'll figure out how to get you to the win that I think.
Yeah, like in one of my previous companies, I used to coach my organizations what culture is. It's essentially like a battleship where thousands of soldiers are all rowing in the same direction, right? Because that's kind of like where if like half of them are going this way, other half is going this way, the third half is like going backwards, right? Where does the ship go? It just stays there, right? So to me, that's kind of like an easy example that people are like, oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's the importance of culture and making sure we're all rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, it's not just what it's on the poster, right? Even though now it's very important to say what you're doing, like for your brain to register, but it really is what happens when nobody is watching, right? Like real culture show up in how the decisions are being made. You can put anything, you can announce anything, but if you're not backing that up with actions, it's worth nothing. Or less than nothing, because then you lose the trust.
In companies, if you want to know if the culture is real, like don't read the values deck or whatever they put on their websites, like watch the leaders' actions and who and what gets rewarded, right? That's an indication of the culture.
That is a perfect indication. Well said. Amber, thank you so much for being here with us. We love to have you. I was so excited about this. I told Ashok, oh my God, you're going to love her.
I was like, oh my God, we need to snap.
I love the so high energy. Oh my gosh, I totally identify. As we're here figuring out careers that don't require performing and just delivering, right? So thank you, Amber, again. We appreciate you. You gave amazing advice to everyone today.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for having me, and thank you for bringing this to the world.
Thank you. This is Ashok, and we will see you all in 2 weeks. Share, like, and subscribe. Bye.